All right, let's dive into some really creepy stuff today.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about the missing 411 phenomenon.
Right.
Those disappearances in parks and wilderness areas that just don't make sense.
Yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole.
It
And the
is.
deeper you go, the stranger it gets.
That's the truth.
We're not just talking about people getting lost. These are often experienced outdoor people
Yeah.
vanishing,
Yeah.
like without a trace.
Right.
Sometimes in broad daylight.
Right in front of people.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it is.
And the term missing 411 itself is kind of chilling, right?
Yeah.
It was coined by David Paulides, a former law enforcement officer who spent years investigating these cases.
Right.
What's fascinating is that he noticed some really disturbing patterns that set these disappearances apart from your typical lost hiker.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Paulides analyzed thousands of cases.
Thousands.
Yeah, and he noticed these recurring details that are just creepy.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of these disappearances occur near specific types of locations. Boulder fields, bodies of water.
Interesting.
And when they do find bodies,
Yeah.
it's often in spots that were already searched really carefully.
Like they already looked there.
Yeah. Or in locations that seem impossible to reach.
Really?
Yeah, it's like the victims were put there.
Oh, that's strange.
Yeah.
And you mentioned experienced outdoor people.
Yeah.
Another thing that gets me is just how fast these disappearances happen.
Oh, yeah.
We're not talking about someone wandering off and getting lost over hours or days.
Ew.
Sometimes it happens in seconds
Right.
with people right there.
Yeah, just poof, gone.
Imagine seeing your friend just vanish.
I know, right?
It's like they stepped into another dimension.
Makes you wonder about reality, you know?
It does.
And to make it even weirder, there's hardly any official documentation.
Really?
The National Park Service, believe it or not, doesn't have a central database of missing persons.
So there's no way to really know how big this problem is.
It's hard to get a clear picture, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit.
Okay.
What are some of the main theories out there that try to explain these vanishings?
Well, there are all sorts of explanations.
Yeah.
Some make sense, some are pretty out there.
Okay.
On the more rational end, you've got things like hypothermia,
Okay.
disorientation,
Yeah.
or even animal attacks.
Right, yeah.
Those are possible in some cases, especially in the wilderness.
Right. Those are things you'd usually think about in a survival situation.
Yeah.
But even those don't always explain the really weird details we see in missing 411 cases, do they?
Exactly. That's where things get interesting.
Okay.
Because then you start getting into the paranormal stuff.
Okay.
Bigfoot,
Oh, wow.
alien abductions,
Okay.
even time slips or portals.
Now we're talking X-Files.
Right?
So we've got natural explanations, supernatural explanations.
Yeah.
It's like a puzzle with missing pieces.
Yeah, it is.
Let's look at some actual cases because you found some really interesting ones
I did.
that really show how strange this phenomenon is.
Yeah, let's start with Dennis Martin.
Okay.
This case shows just how suddenly and inexplicably these disappearances can happen.
That one always gets to me, you know?
Yeah.
A young child just vanishing.
It is heartbreaking.
It is.
So this was in 1969.
Okay.
6-year-old Dennis Martin was on a camping trip with his family in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Okay.
Beautiful summer day, a bunch of kids playing hide and seek in the woods.
Right.
Dennis's dad turned away for just a few seconds,
Oh, wow.
and poof, Dennis was gone.
Just like that.
Yeah,
No sounds, no struggle, nothing.
nothing.
It's hard to imagine.
It is, and despite a huge search with thousands of volunteers, they never found any trace of him.
Wow.
And what's even creepier is that the search dogs,
Yeah.
you know those dogs with amazing noses?
Right.
They lost his scent at a specific spot, like he just vanished into thin air.
It's like something took him.
Yeah.
Were there any clues at all? Any weird sightings?
There were a few things.
Like what?
Some people said they heard a scream around the time he disappeared,
Okay.
and a couple people reported seeing a wild man carrying something in the woods.
A wild man.
Yeah,
Oh, that's creepy.
right.
Could that have just been someone's imagination?
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you add that to the fact that the dogs lost his scent so suddenly,
Yeah.
it's more than just a kid wandering off.
Right.
There's something strange going on.
So we have this little boy disappearing, a possible scream, and a wild man sighting.
Yeah,
It's like a horror movie.
it is.
And these details aren't unique to Dennis Martin's case, right?
No, a lot of missing 411 cases have these impossible elements.
Okay, let's talk about another case.
Okay.
You mentioned something about a boulder field.
Yeah, this one's in Colorado.
Yep.
An experienced hiker was on a trail near a boulder field.
Popular spot.
Very popular.
Yeah.
And he disappeared.
Okay.
Search and rescue looked everywhere, For days.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Wow.
Weeks later.
Yeah.
His body was found in a place they had already searched multiple times.
Wait, they searched there and then he just appears.
Yeah.
It's like someone was messing with him.
It's really strange.
It is?
And to top it off, they never figured out how he died.
Wow.
It's like he was dropped there from another dimension.
That's wild.
It is.
It's like the search teams were looking right through him and then suddenly he was there.
I know, it's baffling.
What could explain that?
That's the big question.
It really makes you wonder if we're missing something.
Yeah.
So we have these two cases, a young boy disappearing instantly
Yeah.
and an experienced hiker reappearing in a place they already searched.
Yeah.
It's enough to make anyone think twice about going into the wilderness.
It does make you wonder what's out there.
It really does.
But before we jump into the really crazy theories,
Yeah.
let's take a step back and look at some of the more rational explanations.
Okay, let's ground ourselves a bit before we go full spooky. What are some of the more down-to-earth explanations that experts have come up with?
Well, like we said before, hypothermia and disorientation are real dangers out there.
Right.
Hypothermia especially can set in fast.
Right.
It messes with your thinking and you can start acting irrationally.
Yeah, I can see how that could make someone get lost
Right.
or make bad decisions.
Exactly.
But do those really explain everything?
Well, you're right. There are a lot of cases where those simpler explanations don't seem to fit.
Yeah.
And that's where the more speculative theories come in.
Okay.
But before we go there, let's hear what survival experts have to say about the psychology of these situations.
Okay.
They might have some insights that can help us understand some of the stranger behavior we see.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's see what they have to say.
Yeah. Survival experts have some really interesting things to say about how our minds work when we're under extreme stress.
Okay, like what?
They talk about this thing called perceptual narrowing.
Perceptual narrowing.
Yeah, basically when you're in a life or death situation,
Okay.
your senses and awareness get super focused on the immediate threat.
Like tunnel vision.
Yeah, but for your whole perception of reality.
So you're saying our brains prioritize survival over everything else
Right.
and filter anything that seems irrelevant.
Exactly.
That makes sense, I guess, from an evolutionary standpoint.
Yeah,
But it also sounds kind of terrifying.
it is.
Imagine being so focused on escaping danger that you don't even notice what's around you.
Exactly. And in that state, you can make really irrational decisions.
I can see that.
Wander off in weird directions.
Yeah.
And even misinterpret what you're seeing or hearing.
So what we see, hear, or feel might be distorted by fear and adrenaline.
Exactly.
So someone lost in the woods, panicking, might see a tree branch and think it's a monster.
Yeah.
Or hear the wind and think it's a growl.
Exactly. Our primal instincts take over.
Right.
And our rational mind kind of shuts down. It is. And this could explain why some people in missing 411 cases do things that just don't make sense.
Okay. Yeah.
They might be reacting to a threat that's not really there.
Right.
Or their senses might be playing tricks on them.
It's a creepy thought.
It is.
But it also offers a more scientific way to look at some of this strange behavior.
Yeah, it does.
But even with that in mind,
yeah.
there are still cases where things are so bizarre.
Right.
They don't even seem to fit with psychological explanations.
Right.
You mentioned some people who survive these things but don't remember anything.
Yeah, those are really interesting cases.
They are.
Imagine being found miles from where you disappeared.
Yeah.
Maybe after days of being missing.
Wow.
Totally unharmed.
Okay.
But with no memory of what happened.
That's why.
There's like a part of their experience just got deleted.
So what do they say about those cases?
Some researchers think it could be a type of dissociative amnesia.
Dissociative amnesia.
Yeah, it's a psychological defense mechanism that's triggered by extreme trauma or stress.
So basically, the mind blocks out the memory to protect itself,
Right.
like hitting the delete button on a traumatic file.
Exactly.
And in a wilderness survival situation, there's definitely potential for trauma.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess it makes sense that someone could experience enough trauma to trigger that kind of amnesia.
It's definitely possible.
But that still doesn't explain how they end up in those impossible locations,
Right.
miles away, with no memory of how they got there.
That's the part that really stumps researchers.
Yeah, it's like they were transported somehow,
Like some unseen force moved them.
but we have no idea how.
Exactly.
Okay, I think we're ready to talk about the more fringe theories now.
All right, let's do it.
Bigfoot, aliens, maybe even time travel.
You got it.
You mentioned earlier that these wilder explanations come up a lot in Missing 411 discussions.
They do, and it's easy to just dismiss them as fantasy.
Sure.
But remember, just because we haven't proven Bigfoot or aliens exist
Yeah.
doesn't mean they don't. And time travel, even though it's theoretical,
Yeah.
it's not completely impossible according to physics.
So you're saying we should keep an open mind.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm game.
All right.
Let's start with Bigfoot.
Okay.
What's the connection there?
Well, a lot of missing 411 cases happen in areas where people have reported seeing Bigfoot.
Okay.
And some witnesses in these cases describe seeing large, hairy creatures
Right.
or hearing weird noises around the time of the disappearances.
So are we saying Bigfoot is kidnapping people?
Well, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Most people think of Bigfoot as a gentle giant.
Yeah, like a recluse
But-
that avoids humans.
Yeah, but Bigfoot lore is complicated.
Oh.
Some stories say Bigfoot is friendly, others say it's territorial or even predatory.
Interesting.
We just don't know enough about Bigfoot, if it even exists, to say for sure what its role might be in these disappearances.
Okay, so Bigfoot is still a mystery.
Yeah, it is.
What about aliens? How do they fit into this?
Well, there have been reports of UFOs
Okay.
and strange lights in the sky near some missing 411 locations.
Right.
And some researchers believe that these disappearances could be alien abductions.
So people are getting beamed up to spaceships in national parks.
It sounds crazy, right?
It does.
But it would explain how some people reappear miles away with no memory.
Yeah,
It's a mind-boggling possibility.
it is.
It fits with this idea that there are forces we don't understand at work here.
Right. Forces beyond our comprehension.
Exactly.
Okay, we've got Bigfoot, we've got aliens.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the weirdest one,
All right.
time travel.
Time travel.
Yeah, this one really gets me thinking.
It's a classic sci-fi concept,
It is.
but it's also something that scientists are actually studying.
Really?
Yeah, some researchers think that certain places on Earth might be like gateways.
Gateways.
Yeah, to other dimensions.
Oh, wow.
Or even other points in time.
So you're saying someone could be hiking in the woods, walk into a time portal,
Yeah?
and end up in a different time period.
It's a wild thought.
It is.
And while there's no proof that time portals exist,
Right.
there are stories of people suddenly finding themselves in unfamiliar places
Yeah.
with no memory of how they got there.
Wow.
Some people think these are cases of spontaneous time travel.
It's fascinating, but also kind of scary.
is.
Imagine being ripped from your own time
Yeah.
and having no control over where or when you end up.
I know. It's like our deepest fears about the unknown.
It really is.
It shows us how little we understand about the universe.
Right.
We think of time as linear. But what if it's more fluid than we realize?
Okay.
What if there are cracks in reality that allow us to slip between different times?
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
But is there any science behind time travel?
Well, the laws of physics as we know them
Yep.
don't completely rule it out,
Okay.
but it would take huge amounts of energy
Yeah.
and technology way beyond anything we have now.
So it's possible, but not likely with what we know now.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
But when we're dealing with something as mysterious as the missing 411,
Yeah.
we have to consider all the possibilities.
Right. Even the crazy one.
Even the crazy ones. We have to push the boundaries of what we think we know
Okay.
and consider ideas that challenge our understanding of how the universe works.
So we've talked about Bigfoot, aliens, and time travel.
Yeah.
Are there any other theories out there?
There are a few other interesting ones.
Okay.
Some researchers are looking at natural phenomena that we don't fully understand.
Like what?
Well, one example is infrasound.
Infrasound. What's that?
It's basically low-frequency sound waves that
Okay.
can have weird effects on people.
Wow, what kind of effects?
Well, they can cause disorientation, anxiety, even hallucinations.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty strange stuff.
So how does this connect to missing 411?
Well, infrasound can come from natural sources
Right.
like earthquakes, volcanoes, even strong winds. And some researchers think that certain geological formations might create pockets of infrasound.
So like natural infrasound hotspots in the wilderness?
Yeah, kinda.
That could mess with people's minds.
Exactly, causing them to get lost or act irrationally.
That's a more believable explanation than Bigfoot or aliens.
It is.
But still pretty creepy.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you wonder what other unseen forces are out there.
Right.
Affecting us in ways we don't even realize.
Exactly. The wilderness is full of mysteries,
It is.
and we're only just beginning to understand them.
Right. But before we get too lost in all these theories,
Yeah.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
The connection between these modern disappearances and ancient legends about the wilderness.
Right.
I think that's a really interesting perspective.
It is.
Like we're about to step into the world of folklore and mythology.
Yeah, it adds a whole other layer to this.
It does.
And it reminds us that humans have been dealing with the mysteries of the wilderness for a long time.
Right, long before we had scientific explanations.
Exactly. We had stories and myths and legends.
Right, to try and make sense of the world.
Exactly.
It's like those stories were our ancestors' way of explaining the unexplainable,
right.
of dealing with the fear of the unknown.
Right.
But what did those ancient stories actually tell us?
Well, that's what we'll talk about in the next part of our deep dive.
Oh, I can't wait.
We'll explore the world of folklore and mythology and see if those ancient tales might hold some clues to the modern mystery of the missing 411.
It's amazing to think that the answers might be hidden in stories from the past.
It is. It really is.
So we've looked at all sorts of theories about the missing 411.
We have.
From the scientific to the totally out there.
Yeah.
But now I want to shift gears a bit.
Okay.
And tap into a different kind of knowledge.
Right.
The wisdom that's been passed down for generations.
Right.
You mentioned that ancient legends and folklore might give us some insights into this.
Yeah, a lot of cultures have stories about spirits in the forest.
Oh, yeah.
Protective beings, even trickster figures that lead people astray.
That's creepy.
It is, and these stories often serve as warnings.
Warnings?
Yeah, about the power of the wilderness.
Okay.
And the importance of respecting it.
It's like those stories were our ancestors' way of trying to understand things they couldn't explain.
Exactly.
To cope with the fear of the unknown.
Right.
But how do we connect those ancient beliefs to the missing 411?
Well, one way is to think about whether those stories were more than just stories.
Okay.
What if they were based on real observations?
Oh, interesting.
Of something our ancestors couldn't really understand.
Like they were seeing the same thing we're calling missing 411 now.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the science to explain it.
Exactly.
So you're saying those spirits and tricksters might not have been supernatural.
Right.
Maybe they were just natural forces that our ancestors couldn't explain.
Exactly. Like some Native American tribes have stories about creatures that can mimic human voices.
Really?
Yeah. And they lure people off the trails into dangerous places.
Oh, wow.
Could that be their way of explaining infrasound?
Oh, that's interesting.
We know infrasound can mess with your head.
Yeah.
Cause hallucinations.
Right.
Maybe that's what they were experiencing.
That's a really cool possibility.
It is.
It's like those stories were a way of passing down knowledge.
Right.
About the dangers of the wilderness. Wow, it's humbling to think that
it is.
We often think we're so advanced.
Yeah.
But those stories remind us that there are forces out there that we may never fully understand.
Absolutely.
And that brings up an important point.
What's that?
As much as we love talking about the mysteries of the missing 411, we can't forget that the wilderness can be a dangerous place.
You're right.
Whether or not there are mysterious forces involved.
It's important to be prepared.
Exactly. So let's talk about some practical tips.
Right.
For anyone who's going into the wilderness.
Good idea.
What are the most important things to remember?
Well, the first thing is never hike alone.
Always have a buddy.
Yeah, the buddy system is crucial.
In case something happens.
Exactly. You've got someone to help you.
Or to go get help.
Exactly.
It's not just about accidents or injuries either.
Right.
Having someone with you can help you stay on track.
Yeah, with navigation.
Especially if you start to feel lost.
It's easy to get turned around out there.
It is. What else should people keep in mind?
Always tell someone where you're going.
Before you go.
Before you go, yeah.
Okay.
Tell them your route, when you'll be back.
So if you don't return on time, they know something's wrong.
Exactly.
Like filing a flight plan. But for hiking,
exactly.
It's such a simple thing.
Yeah.
But it could be really important.
It could save your life.
And while we're talking about communication,
yeah,
it's a good idea to have a way to call for help.
Oh, yeah.
Like a cell phone or a satellite messenger.
Especially if you're in a remote area.
Okay, so buddy system, telling someone your plans, communication device.
Yeah.
What about gear?
Gear's important.
What should people bring?
Always have a map and compass and know how to use them.
Right, don't just rely on your phone's GPS.
No, those can die or malfunction.
True, it's good to have backup.
And pack some survival gear, too.
Like what?
Extra clothes, rain gear, first aid kit, headlamp, fire starter, food, and water.
Yeah, it's better to have too much than not enough.
Definitely, especially something unexpected happens.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, one more thing.
Okay.
Trust your gut.
If something feels wrong.
Yeah, if you get a bad feeling about something, don't ignore it.
Turn back.
Turn back. Change your plans.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Exactly.
Especially in the wilderness.
Right.
That's so important. We often ignore our intuition.
We do.
But it's usually right.
Yeah, and if you do see something strange, don't freak out.
Okay.
Stay calm. Think clearly.
Make good decisions.
Exactly.
It's good advice for life in general.
It is.
But especially in the wilderness.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we've covered a lot today. From the mysteries of the missing 411
Yeah.
to how to stay safe out there.
It's been a good discussion.
Any final thoughts?
I just want to say that even though the missing 411 is scary,
Yeah.
it shouldn't stop us from enjoying nature.
Right.
Be aware of the risks, take precautions,
Yeah.
and respect the power of nature.
Exactly.
Then we can have safe and amazing experiences in the wilderness.
Well said. I think that's the perfect way to wrap things up.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the missing 411.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been fascinating and thought-provoking.
It has.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to the deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Remember to subscribe for more deep dives into weird and interesting topics.
I'll see you next time.
Until then, stay curious, stay safe, and maybe listen to those whispers from the past.
They might have something to teach us.
You never know.
Yeah.